Picture this. The greatest king of England, once the dazzling prince of Europe, reduced to a corpse so foul, so swollen, and so unstable that it burst open inside its coffin. The smell of rotting flesh was so unbearable that hardened courtiers gagged and vomited in the royal chapel. And in the most humiliating twist of fate, dogs were found licking up the black fluids that leaked from his royal remains. This wasn't some rumor whispered by enemies. This happened, and for centuries it was covered up. Henry VIII did not slip away peacefully into the night. He died screaming in agony, consumed by madness, his body eaten alive by infection. And even in death, his corpse exploded like a rotten barrel of meat. What I'm about to reveal comes from long-hidden physician notes, suppressed ambassadorial letters, and modern forensic evidence. And it rewrites everything you thought you knew about England's most infamous king. When Henry VIII came to the throne in 1509, he was the very image of a Renaissance prince, tall, athletic, strikingly handsome. He was compared to King David, to Alexander the Great. He wrote poetry, composed music, and dazzled foreign ambassadors with his intellect. But the man who began as Europe's shining star would end his reign feared, bloated, and rotting from the inside out. How? It all began with one accident, one crash on the tilt yard that shattered not just Henry's body, but the destiny of England itself. January 24, 1536, Greenwich Palace. Henry VIII, 44 years old, armoured in gold and steel, mounted on his warhorse. Thousands gathered to watch their king prove he was still England's strongest man. The lances lowered, the horses thundered forward, and then, disaster. Henry's horse collapsed. His own 300-pound armoured body slammed into the frozen earth. The king didn't move. For 2 hours he lay unconscious. 2 hours where England had no monarch. 2 hours where Anne Boleyn, already on thin ice and pregnant with what she prayed would be a son, wept in terror. When Henry finally woke up, the man who opened his eyes was not the same. The birth of the tyrant. Before the accident, Henry was strict but fair by the standards of his time. He had been loyal to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, for 2 decades. He executed sparingly compared to his predecessors. He valued debate and diplomacy. After the accident, everything changed. Doctors now believe Henry suffered a traumatic brain injury to his frontal lobe. That's the part of the brain that controls personality, self-control, and empathy. Damage there turns charm into paranoia, patience into uncontrollable rage. And sure enough, Henry became a tyrant. Anne Boleyn lost her head just 4 months later. Thomas Cromwell, the trusted advisor who had engineered the Reformation itself, was executed soon after. Henry raged unpredictably, screaming one moment, weeping the next, and yet, this was only the start of his nightmare. The same fall reopened an old wound on his leg, an ulcer from an earlier joust. This time, it never closed. Imagine wounds the size of tennis balls that never scabbed over. Imagine pus pouring out daily, a stench so vile that even seasoned doctors had to turn away. Dr. Thomas Vickery, his physician, described ulcers grievous beyond measure, stinking and incurable. Servants drained bowls of yellow pus twice a day. Bronze basins filled with infection were whisked away as quickly as possible, lest courtiers faint from the stench. Henry tried to hide it. He strapped metal gutters to his legs, hoping the pressure would close the sores. Instead, it cut off circulation and worsened the infection. He drowned himself in imported perfumes, rose oil and musk, but nothing masked the rot. The ulcers poisoned his blood. Modern doctors know what this means: chronic osteomyelitis, a bone infection leaking toxins into his system every single day. Those toxins warped his moods, clouded his mind, and burned his body alive from within. As the years dragged on, the pain grew unbearable. Henry turned to food for comfort. With no exercise, his body ballooned. From 280 pounds, he grew to over 350. His armor proves it. By 1540, his waist measured 48 inches. By 1545, 54 inches. That's the width of a refrigerator. The palace itself had to be rebuilt for him. Doorways widened, floors reinforced with extra beams, special chairs constructed with removable arms. Servants used pulleys and slings to haul him out of bed. He was dressed lying flat, his massive limbs managed by 4 men. He was rolled into a wheeled chair, though this was carefully hidden from public eyes. But there was no hiding the smell. Courtiers pressed pomanders to their faces, balls filled with perfume and spices. Noble women fainted in his presence. Hardened soldiers gagged and vomited. Imagine being so decayed that even your loyal subjects could barely stand your presence, and Henry knew. Deep down, he knew he was rotting alive. By the mid-1540s, Henry's mind had shattered. He held conversations with thin air. He argued with his dead father, pleading his case about money. He cried out for his mother, dead for decades. He screamed at shadows, accusing them of treason. The French ambassador recorded one horrifying scene. Henry suddenly rose, with servants straining to lift him, and began shouting at an empty chair. "You dare mock me, witch? I'll take your head again," he bellowed. Convinced Anne Boleyn's ghost had come to laugh at him, servants developed a secret code to survive. Coloured ribbons signalled the king's mood: red for rage, black for despair, white for calm. One sneeze in his presence could mean death. One misplaced step, banishment. Even his death warrants became confused. In his madness, Henry ordered executions of men already dead. The King of England was slipping into insanity, rotting not only in body, but in mind. By Christmas 1546, Henry was grotesque. His face swollen, his skin yellowed, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. His tongue so enlarged he could barely speak. His legs split open, leaking fluids through dozens of bandages. The ulcers now emitted green and brown pus, the unmistakable stench of gangrene. His organs failed. His urine turned dark brown. His belly swelled with fluid, suffocating him from within. Servants fainted, changing his sheets. 6 men were needed to turn him in bed. Henry VIII, once Europe's handsomest prince, was now a mountain of rotting flesh. On January 27, 1547, Archbishop Cranmer was called to Henry's bedside. What he saw shocked even him. The king convulsed in seizures so violent the bed frame cracked. 6 men held him down as black bile poured from his mouth. The smell was indescribable. Cranmer admitted in his diary that he vomited twice from the stench. Henry screamed of fire, of demons crawling from beneath his bed. He begged dead children for forgiveness. He sobbed for his mother. He whispered apologies to Catherine of Aragon. Finally, at 2:07 a.m., he squeezed Cranmer's hand once and went still. Henry VIII was dead. But his humiliation wasn't over. Within hours, his corpse swelled with gases. Embalmers rushed to work, but his organs disintegrated at the touch. His liver fell apart. His intestines were black. His stomach released such a stench that men ran gagging from the chamber. They packed his body with 100 pounds of salt and herbs, sealed it in lead, but the corpse kept swelling. On the journey to Windsor, it happened. At Sion Abbey, the coffin split open with a crack like thunder. Black, putrid liquid poured out onto the chapel floor, and in the morning, dogs were found licking the royal remains. The King of England, God's anointed, the man who broke with Rome and executed wives, was reduced to carrion. Terrified, his men resealed the coffin and buried him quickly, swearing witnesses to silence. The official record claimed he died peacefully, honoured and respected. But the truth, the stinking, rotting, exploding truth, was buried for centuries. Henry VIII began as the most dazzling king in Christendom. He ended as a bloated tyrant, haunted by ghosts, consumed by infection, his remains lapped up by dogs. And yet his government lied. They told the world he died with dignity. They erased the horror. They buried the truth. But now we know. Henry VIII didn't just die, he rotted.